Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you today. Yep, the SEC collapse this year has not been pretty. Good grief. And folks are enjoying it outside of the SEC circumference. This has been not fun for a lot of teams to watch this, and especially the Alabama, the Georgia, all those types of teams that are used to being on top, and things are not going their way. I don't know that the SEC folks can handle this.
What brought you to this lowly stage?
It was?
NIL. Yeah, NIL definitely played a role in this. And let's see what everybody's talking about. Of course, they're giving Paul Feinbaum a ton of grief, who usually carries the water beautifully for the SEC, or not so beautifully if you're not part of that. Yeah, they're having a lot of fun, and he's kind of given up on this season anyway.
Yeah, I led the Alabama parade to get them into the playoffs. You know that. I stood on every building, especially on this show. And on the first day of the new year, I'm surrendering. I am waving the white flag. Forget Alabama. I'm going. Count me out.
Oh, Paul with one of those hotel towels.
Yeah, and he's had to raise the white flag pretty much for the SEC this season. Good grief. The Tennessee game didn't help us any versus Ohio State, and then Notre Dame beating Georgia. That was difficult. And it's pretty much all anybody's talking about on YouTube when they're talking about the SEC is just how bad this season's been.
What are your takeaway, though, of the SEC performance this year versus moving forward? What's maybe the elephant in the room now that everyone needs to acknowledge?
My God, is college football media not just having a ball, just running all over the freshly laid funeral ground of the SEC? I mean, this has been amazing on social media and on shows. I'm watching Dan Dockich, boy. He's at the beach throwing sand on the SEC. It's dead.
My ties.
I was told the SEC was the best, and it's over for the SEC. Look, I'm a Southern boy. All right, I'm an SEC guy. I went to an SEC school, and I love the SEC as much as the next person. I'm a big enough person to admit right now, the SEC got their ass whipped this year, and it is not the best conference in college football in 2024. The Big Ten deserves that crown. I've said throughout the year, I think the Big Ten is top-heavy, but I would take those top Big Ten teams probably over the top SEC teams, and guess how it bared out? Those top SEC teams, not as good as the top Big Ten teams. Now,
I don't think there's much question that there's been a paradigm shift for sure when it comes to football, and I'll show you exactly why it's happening. Now, if we didn't have this information, we'd all be in shock right now. It'd be like, how could this possibly have happened? There's just no way. But when you look at the numbers, you understand exactly why. Here's your NIL money spent on football. And as you can see, the teams that are still there, actually, if you look at here, 3 of the top 4 are still in the playoff. That's Texas, Notre Dame, and Ohio State. Oregon got knocked out by number 4 on the NIL meter. LSU, I don't know what happened to them this year.
And we're sitting here again. Talking about the same things.
This year, of course, Georgia just got knocked out. Granted, they didn't have their starting quarterback, but still. That's why these teams like Notre Dame can now match up against the Georgia, and they couldn't before. Alabama sitting at number 9. I did adjust this for Tennessee because the national media had us 11.6, and everybody thought that was really low. And Brent Hubbs of VolQuest, who I trust him, he feels it's somewhere between 14 and 15. Nobody has the exact numbers unless you work at Spire Sports, but he's as connected as anybody, and I would trust him over the national people. So we're sitting at about 13th, and it's pretty obvious where the problems are. And then people want to know, how in the world did Indiana get so good all of a sudden? They were 15th in NIL. They spent over $13 million on their football program. They had 30 transfer portal additions. That'll help you a little bit. And if you want to know where all the great players are going, they're being spread all over the country now. As we know, we're SEC folks here. We know most of the best players come out of Florida, Georgia, Alabama, LSU. There's other great players, all over the country, but most of them are down in the South. Well, let me show you a prime example of somebody that left the South and is having a lot of fun. I show this guy because He was the ultimate 5-star coming out of high school last year, and he's out of Opelika, Florida. Yep. For some reason, he decided he wanted to go to Ohio State. Now, back in the day, it would have been very difficult to get him out of the state of Florida, and if he did leave that state, he almost certainly wouldn't have got past Georgia or Alabama.
My Alabama Crimson Tide.
And then Ohio State's always been a good recruiting school, but they still struggled at times against the South, primarily the SEC. But now, with NIL, look, these players are making decisions based on this. And if you've got good money, they don't mind getting on a plane or a bus or a train or whatever. And now we've got true parity, or it's becoming a lot of parity. And the SEC is struggling with it. You know, this was the toughest year I've watched for the SEC. I mean, it was kind of sad. And yes, I know Texas is still in the playoff, but they've only been in the SEC for 1 year. I'm struggling treating them as an SEC team because they're just so brand new. You know, they were in, the Big 12 before. So, anyway, this is a sad time in the SEC. You know, they're going to have to get the money up, and that's not going to be easy because they're not used to it. Look, we're just used to having our guys that live here and grew up here in the South stay. And that's just not going to happen if Notre Dame's got money, Ohio State's got money, Michigan, all these other places.
Thank you, sir. There you go. There you go. There you go.
I don't blame them for going there. I mean, crap, if somebody offers you $1 million, what are you going to do? Oh, well, no, I'm going to stay here. No, you're not. You're going to say, thank you. I'll take that. I'll be up there in January. No problem. So anyway, the SEC is definitely struggling this year, and it stinks. I don't like it. But it is what it is. You might as well just look at it and try to fix it best you can. There is something kind of fun about it. There is one positive. Parity is actually really good for the sport because it's really kind of crappy when you have a handful of teams that totally dominate all the time. And now it's getting spread. I mean, the Indiana people must have had a ball this year. You know how happy they were all season? And Notre Dame finally breaks through and they beat a SEC club in a playoff game, which is extremely rare for them. Ohio State's got to be on cloud 9 right now. Let me check in on them.
Fire Ryan Day.
You sure about that?
It's the worst moment of my life. You got to fire Ryan Day.
Still wanting to fire Ryan Day. I'll bet you every one of those folks are taking those comments back right now. Anyway, just thought I'd cover this. SEC's got to look in the mirror right now and kind of figure out what to do because, man, oh man, these folks on social media are having too much fun. They're enjoying this way too much. Anyway, if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let me know. Continue to cover all these big college sports stories. If you've not subscribed, boom, 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 hit this little button right here. Won't cost you a dime. And for my Tennessee folks, we're whooping up on Arkansas right now in basketball. We're #1 right now, which is nice. And right over here is the most recent video YouTube thinks you'll enjoy based on your viewing history. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.